This is the second question and answer video. Thank you so much to everybody who posted questions and comments and gave them thumbs up. Keep doing that. Keep this dialogue going. It's so useful and so important that we have a place where we can talk about mental health. Leave questions below, leave questions on the other video. There's a link to the previous video in the description below. So to get started, in this video we're going to talk about existence. So this came up a couple times. Ryan asked about it, Thomas asked about it. Here is Thomas's question. How do I get over the existential barrier my mind puts up when I'm starting to move forward in life? Example, what's the point in trying to recover? What's the point in life? Why am I here? Do I even exist? So the first thing when it comes to uncertainty about anything is to recognize that trying to cope with and check on and control uncertainty are the compulsions that are going to feed more anxiety about those things. So trying to control uncertainty, trying to be certain about existence is only going to make you more uncertain about existence. Just like trying to be certain about whether your hands are totally clean is going to lead to more compulsions to try to wash your hands, or trying to be totally certain that you lock the door, or you turned off the stove, or that you're loved. In a relationship, you see the same kind of uncertainty. Uncertainty about the other person, uncertainty about what's going to happen in the relationship. That's the kind of uncertainty that fuels compulsions that only create more uncertainty. So like with any other compulsive issue, cutting out the compulsions is going to help you a lot. You're going to continue to experience these obsessions as long as you continue to engage in the compulsions. And there's one other thing that I'll mention, and that's to look at your beliefs and desires related to these existential questions. Because often, I think what might sometimes be called existential OCD or existential anxiety, often one of the things that trips us up is that we believe we should know the answers to these questions, that we should be certain about these things. We should know the meaning of life, why we're here, what we're doing, etc. And holding on to that belief or having that desire to be certain about those things is going to continually create that pressure to engage in those compulsions. So a big part of this, and we talk a lot about beliefs and desires, is taking a look at what your beliefs and desires are around this issue of existence or around these existential issues, because you're really likely to help yourself with them by changing some of those beliefs or desires. Next up, I've got a question here on kids and ethics. So Floyd asks, is it wise or ethical to have children while you and or your partner are battling or have been recovered from OCD or any anxiety disorder? Because some studies show OCD does run in families. Also, maybe a too personal question, do you have kids, and if not, would you have kids considering your mental health history? So let's start there at the end. So my mental health, so first off, no, I don't have kids that I know of. The way I would see my mental health history is that I ran into mental health challenges and I learned how to overcome those. And for many years now, I've been, I would say, maintaining great mental health. I haven't experienced any of the symptoms I struggled with for more than a decade. So that's how I would see my mental health history, is actually one of learning how to take care of my mental health. And I would see that as a huge advantage for any parent. I mean, now I can share, if I did have kids, or if I have kids out there who are watching this that I don't know about, now I can share all sorts of skills with them. I would be able to see the mistakes happening that, for many years I struggled with. So I would be able to share skills on how to handle uncertainty in a healthy way, how to feel emotions they don't like, and learn how to do things that they care about, learn how to put their time and energy into things that are going to make them healthy and happy. Learning how to experience things they do like. I mean, that was something I really struggled with. Just having a complete range of emotions and not, constantly being overwhelmed by them or constantly being in a reactive state to the internal and external experiences I was having. So, based on my mental health history, I would find that a huge asset when it comes to parenting. Now the question about, was kind of like a question of genetics. Does mental illness get carried on through families? Absolutely, there have been studies showing that OCD does run in families. That doesn't necessarily show whether it's genetic or it's learned. What I would say in general about this kind of question is that half of people, so half of all people in their lifetime, research shows, will develop a diagnosable mental illness. So that's half of people. So I would never go to half the people in the world and say, you shouldn't have kids because you might have a mental illness. In many ways, these things just aren't rare or unusual. It's very normal. It's very much a part of the human experience to experience poor mental health. Just like it's very much a part of the human experience to experience poor physical health. And yes, sometimes that can run in the family on both the physical health side and the mental health side. But there are things we can do about these issues. And so with any challenge, often our fears, and this so goes on a broader level if we're just talking about OCD, our fears are often real fears. They're based on things that actually happen. And we accept that those things can happen. We accept the uncertainty about them. We accept that if those things happen, that might be really terrible for us. But we can handle that. And so we accept that uncertainty and we do things that are aligned with our values anyway. We do things that will make us healthy and happy because that's what's going to be really important to ourselves and to our family. There are always going to be challenges. And if we work together and we focus on what's actually going to be healthy and happy for all of us, we can get through them. And that's part of being alive. The next question comes from Jake. I got a lot of thumbs up in the comment feed. I know this is something that comes up all of the time, so here we go. How do you resist thoughts that feel so real without doing the compulsions? Like I have obsessions that I'll get a headache or I'll feel dizzy all day if I don't do the compulsion. And as soon as that thought happens, I start to feel a headache and I feel dizzy, and so it starts to feel real. But if I do the compulsion, it goes away. I guess it would go away on its own in time, but my anxiety stops me from trying it and resisting the compulsion. Okay, so there's 3 things that I want to touch on in this question, because you can see a whole bunch of topics here that are useful if you're tackling any mental illness issue on the road to recovery. So the first up is the realness. So that idea that because it feels real, or it's actually happening, that then we should engage in the compulsion. So I would say just throw out the whole idea of realness or worrying about if a thought is real or false or a memory is real or false. Personally, when I was struggling with mental illness, I completely believed all of my thoughts. I had rational, totally reasonable reasons for engaging in compulsions. I had engaged in those compulsions for decades. All the fears were reasonable. Many of them had happened before. The fact that a thought is real doesn't mean that the compulsion you engage in as a reaction to that thought is healthy for you. So when I'm talking about cutting out compulsions, learning how to accept thoughts here, I'm talking about things that you believe are real, or that might actually be happening. Whether a thought is real or not, or false or not, or totally strange and out there, it doesn't change the healthy things you can do in the present moment that are going to help you achieve your goals in life, that are going to make you feel healthy and happy. So that's the first thing that I would say there. And on top of that, just trying to judge whether a thought feels real or not can quickly become a compulsion. It's no different than if you see somebody in a relationship trying to judge, like, does this emotion feel real or not? Right? That's just the kind of compulsive behavior that feeds what people often refer to as relationship OCD. So right away, getting caught up in the realness of it, that's part of the compulsion. The second part that's really useful to look at in this question is the fact that the compulsion causes the negative or unwanted feelings to go away. And that totally makes sense. Compulsions work until they don't. I find it so useful to approach compulsive behavioral issues as any addiction. Right? So if you feel something you don't like, you're feeling physical, like dizziness and headaches, and then you engage in a compulsion to find relief, I would ask, how is that different from a drug addict experiencing symptoms of withdrawal? They have that urge to engage in the compulsion. They're feeling terrible. They're feeling all those physical symptoms, and then they engage in their compulsion. They take some drugs and they feel relief from that. How is that different? And I would ask there, is that person actually experiencing relief, or are they perpetuating that cycle? And that's something to keep in mind when you're struggling with OCD, is that every time you engage in the compulsion, although it feels like it's bringing you relief, it's actually causing you to feel anxiety tomorrow, say. So it's always short-term relief at the expense of long-term health and happiness. So I found it really useful to recognize that when I was engaging in compulsions, if I chose to engage in a compulsion, I was choosing to experience those feelings I didn't like all over again. and continuing to experience them. And I was choosing to make them worse. Lead to obsessions. It feels like it's the other way around. But you can see it when you start to see that these cycles perpetuate. The more you engage in the compulsions, the more the obsessions are going to occur and the worse they're going to get. But something that's tricky about that approach is that when you cut out the compulsions, it means you're going to experience withdrawal. It's going to be really unpleasant. And that brings me to the third element of this question that I wanted to touch on, and that's the stories we tell ourselves. At the end of the question there, you mentioned that, anxiety, you said my anxiety, something to the effect that prevents me from trying this or cutting out the compulsions. And so that's something that right now you believe. And I would ask whether or not it's actually useful to tell yourself that. It's very, very difficult to cut out compulsions, to experience those feelings of withdrawal, and do healthy things. And if we believe that we can't do healthy things while we feel anxiety, it's going to continue to be very difficult to do those things. And I think it's very useful to be aware of the stories you tell ourselves, because if you're telling yourself that when I feel these things, it's too difficult for me to do healthy things, it's going to continue to be very difficult. Recovery is already difficult enough without telling yourself that you can't do it. Those thoughts may feel totally real. That doesn't mean you can't. You can still do the healthy things that are going to help you recover, that are actually going to help you move ahead where you want to go in life. That is it for this round of questions and answers. Again, really, really appreciate it to everybody who sent in the questions. Feel free to keep the conversation going down below or add in new questions and give them thumbs up if you see a question there that you want talked about in a future video. All right, thanks.